When Iranian women burn their veils, it's resistance. But when French politicians use those flames to justify hijab bans in schools or public spaces or offices or in governments, it is total and utter hypocrisy. Islam says that there is no compulsion in religion. So why are we forcing hijab on women? Why are women still treated like hangers, objects to be dressed up or stripped down to serve someone else's comfort, control, or narrative? As if their worth lies in how much skin they show or hide, and not in their minds, not in their voices, not in their opinions, not in their choices, but how they dress up. It's the same piece of cloth, yet somehow it is treated like a threat in one place and a mandatory uniform in another. Two sides of the same oppressive coin, where women's bodies become battlegrounds for ideology, whether it's wrapped in modesty or disguised as liberation. Here's the truth. When power fears a woman's autonomy, it goes after her wardrobe. In this video, we're going to do a thorough analysis of a state's war on women's bodies. Stay tuned. So now we are going to unveil the truth that hijab is not the issue. Control is. From the dusty boulevards of the 1930s Tehran to the streets of modern Dushanbe in Tajikistan and across global news feeds featuring burning scarves, hijab has become the world's most weaponized piece of cloth. Whether it's being yanked off or forced on, it's not the veil that's shifting, it's the one who gets to decide who wears the veil and who doesn't wear the veil. So we have Iran. From compulsion to rebellion. First, Iran tried to force the hijab, and then it has tried to take off the hijab. When we're talking about 1936, Reza Shah banned the hijab in Iran, and it wasn't only a sort of usual ban. It was a very enforced law. They were taking away women's freedom. Soldiers were literally snatching hijab off women. They were snatching the chadars off women. They were not allowed to wear hijab in public spaces, which is the opposite of whatever is happening in Iran today. But to flex state power under a modern image, that's what it was. It was to flex the state power under a modern image. That was Reza Shah's whole regime in 1936. Then moving forward to 1979, we have Khomeini, who flipped the script, who has said that now wearing the hijab is mandatory. He has imposed the hijab, and now hijab is being seen as a badge of Islamic virtue. It's the same type of control, just the fabric is different. First they tried to take off the hijab, now they're trying to force the hijab. But the main issue is the same. And where were women in this conversation? And where were women in this conversation? And they were nowhere near the decision making tables. They don't get to decide when they wear something, and they don't get to decide when they don't wear something. That's the truth that we have to face. Now moving forward to 2022, just 2 years ago, we have Masha Amni, who died after being arrested for improper hijab, and the veil caught fire, much literally. Women, girls, allies burn scarves, they cut off their hair and shout woman, life and freedom. The question isn't whether hijab is good or bad, or whether it's Islamic or un-Islamic. The question is, why does the state keep legislating women's bodies like battlefields? Why do the men get to decide what women wear and don't wear? Then, just a couple of months ago, we have Tajikistan, which is a very weird phenomena in itself. When the hijab is too Islamic for a Muslim state. Tajikistan is a country where 90% of the population is Muslim. So why is the hijab banned there? In 2024, Tajikistan criminalized the hijab, branding it as foreign and Arab, despite being a Muslim majority country. And I think we all know what's the real reason behind it. But just to phrase the question, what's the real reason? It is power, it is control, it is the anxiety over loyalty, and who pays the price? Who is paying the price for all of this? It's women again. Women whispers resistance through encrypted apps, hidden hijab boutiques, they adapt not because they're free, but because the state has left them no room to breathe. Is this feminism, or is this just a new form of patriarchy in state clothing? Although this happened in the reaction to Masha Amni's death in 2022, where the women are now burning the veil, they're protesting, or whether it's propaganda, who gets to define the narratives of freedom, those who wear the hijab or those who watch them burn it. When Iranian women burn their veils, it's resistance. Let me repeat this again. When Iranian women burn their veils, it's resistance. But when French politicians use those flames to justify hijab bans in schools or public spaces or offices or in governments, it is total and utter hypocrisy. Freedom has become a costume for them. They are tailoring it differently depending on who is looking. Why is the woman hailed as brave when she removes her hijab in Iran, but silenced when she insists on wearing it in France or in India or any other country that has banned the hijab, whether it's Belgium or Germany, right? Why are her choices only celebrated when they fit someone else's agenda? These are some of the questions that we need to keep in mind when we are looking at hijab as a political agenda, as a political statement, as a war on women's bodies, as a tools to control them rather than liberate them or empower them. Visibility is power, but who gets to control the lenses? The hijab debate is not about Islam, and I think it has been apparent to anyone who has been following up on hijab. But the hijab debate is not about Islam. Then what is it about? If the hijab debate is not about Islam, then it must be about secularism, if I'm right. But that's not how it works. It's not about secularism, it's not about Islam, it's not about tradition, it's about control, it's about having power. Whether it's the morality police or the nationalist regimes or secular democracies, the aim is the same: dictate what women wear, how they appear, and who gets to be seen and who gets to be heard. Right? So that's the lens that we need to adopt. And now we need to ask the real questions. Why are women's bodies the default canvas for state ideologies? Why do both dictatorships and democracies fear female autonomy? And what if the issue isn't hijab, but the audacity of women choosing for themselves, the audacity of women in France winning the hijab, or the audacity of women taking off the hijab in Iran? What if the hijab debate is about this, and not about how we have framed it, whether it's Islamic or secularist, or about freedom or liberty, and not of all of these ideologies and agendas, but simply women choosing for themselves? The revolution is global, and it is very, very, very personal. Hijab resistance takes form in many mediums, like burning, wearing, hiding, reinterpreting. But at its core, it is a common, urgent demand, which is let women choose. Until that choice is protected everywhere, the veil, like all things politicized on women's bodies, remains a hostage for someone else's war. Thank you so much for watching.